Hey guys, just to let you know that my creator code SimKim is now live. This is a promotional code that you can use to directly support my channel when coming to buy Sims 4 expansion packs. It allows me to earn a small commission fee from the purchase, and a massive thank you in advance to anyone that uses this code. I really appreciate all your love and support from the bottom of my heart. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm back with a brand new speed build, this time doing a huge family house sat on a horse ranch in the middle of Henford-on-Bagley. So this is a 5-bed 4-bath build, and it's set on a 64 by 64 lot in Henford-on-Bagley, and it comes in at 314,000 simoleons. So I've got a lot of build ideas since I've been back in The Sims 4, but one of the things that stood out the most to me was horses. The addition of horses to The Sims 4, I thought it was amazing, and the fact we can build ranches and all that right now, it was definitely one of the builds that I wanted to do that was just way up there. So since I've been back in The Sims 4, I've been exploring all of the different worlds, and this world is absolutely beautiful. I actually thought that this was the world that came with the Horse Ranch expansion, but it wasn't. This one actually comes with the Sims 4 Cottage Living expansion pack, and it's so beautiful. It's really scenic. And when I was thinking about building a ranch, initially I felt like there was a lot of American style ranches around, and that wasn't really what I wanted to go for. I felt like if we had a ranch in England, that's the type of ranch I wanted to build. So this world was just absolutely perfect for it. Also, as I began building on this lot, this is a 64 by 64 lot, and as I was building the house, as I got to around about this point, I thought, wow, this house is actually massive on this lot. This lot just did not feel as big as it is when I was building this house. So at some point I chop and change the exterior just to kind of like, you know, size down a little bit on the build, because I needed to make sure that I had enough space in the rest of the lot to build everything that I wanted to, you know, for a horse ranch. So I initially built this house obviously right in the middle, just so that I had the space just to kind of figure out what I was doing, how I wanted it to be. To be honest, I actually really wasn't sure how I wanted it to be. I knew that I wasn't going to go for an American style ranch, because that's a particular style of architecture that you need to kind of like mess around with. I just wanted to do something that I felt like if I was driving through the English countryside, not that I'm ever going to see this in an English countryside, but I felt like I just wanted to do like a normal house really, but just kind of set in a farm environment. But I wanted it to be like a really beautiful house as well. Also, being set on one of the biggest lots in the game, I wanted it to be a big enough house that it could house as many Sims as you feel like you want to, because it needed to be a big, huge family home. And actually, even though it is 5 bedrooms, there is multiple beds in some of the bedrooms as well. So this really is like a massive, massive family home. So with being such a busy mum on my day-to-day basis, I don't really get much opportunity to play The Sims, but I felt like I really did want to play around with the horses. And I have a specific family that each time I make a build, I move her into the lot just so that I can take the screenshots and, you know, test out the build, make sure there's no issues with it. And so it was the perfect opportunity actually to play around with horses and just give it a go. And I really loved it. I thought it was so cute. I ended up adopting this gorgeous little horse, and I had a little ride around in it, and I was testing the jumps and things like that in the horse training ground that I'd built as well. And yeah, so I can say that the stables and everything are fully functioning as well in this build, and the horse training ground, that all works perfectly, because I wanted to make sure as well that the gate sizes and everything were okay for animals to walk through. You know, I didn't want to create something that was small and that they couldn't really, you know, enter the fields properly or anything like that. So I did play test this build a little bit as well. So I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who did watch my last video and enter for the giveaway for the Business and Hobbies expansion pack. A very lovely lady called Alina actually won it over on TikTok. So massive congratulations to you, but also first and foremost, massive thank you for all your support and entering the giveaway as well. Please keep an eye out for giveaways. It's something that I want to do regularly on my channel, and it's a great opportunity to win stuff really pretty easy, to be honest. There is so many expansion packs at this point in The Sims 4 that it can be a really costly game. So I would definitely recommend, not just for myself either, but to watch videos of other EA partners and follow their content as well, because there's lots and lots of giveaways on a regular basis, especially when there's a new expansion announced or, you know, is due to be released. It's always worth keeping an eye out just to see if you can get in there and grab yourself something for free. So just coming back to the build, it took me ages actually to figure out which windows and doors to use for this, and I completely recommend setting yourself just a blank canvas wall up at the front when you come in to design, you know, houses and use different doors and windows and things like that, and just make yourself like a little palette, because I find it really, really helpful, because there's quite a few. There's just so much selection at this point, but it took me ages to figure out which style of windows I wanted to use. I felt like the actual build of the house was like just a huge sort of mansion style house, but I did want it to have kind of farmhousey vibes. So I wanted to stick with the sort of wooden windows and just try and keep it as close to a farmhouse as I could, but still looking like quite a nice luxurious house. So when I was growing up, I actually used to ride horses, and I used to ride at this beautiful stables in the countryside called Finlow Hill. And I would ride every Saturday, and I really loved it. And at times I would help out in the stables, and I would help with little horse riding hacks for other groups and things like that. And I really enjoyed it. I think I was I wasn't a very, very confident rider, in the sense of I always remember a little bit of dread when it came to doing horse jumping and things like that. But I think that's because they used to, like every week I didn't have a set horse that I used to ride. It just used to be, you know, you would get a random horse, and over time you would become familiar with the different personalities of the horses. And there was this one particular horse called Pepper, who was a little bit wild. You know, Pepper was a bit unpredictable for the most part. And when you came to do jumping with Pepper, it was like Pepper was either going to go over these jumps or you were going to go over Pepper's head. It was literally one of them. And every single time we came to do jumping, I always used to end up with Pepper. So I think that kind of knocked my confidence, to be honest. And I felt a little bit really nervous when it came to jumping. But I did used to ride this gorgeous Palomino horse as well called Willow. Oh, just the most beautiful temperament, a really calm and like happy horse. And I think if I had Willow all the time, I'd have been a much more confident rider. But as it was, yeah. So I did really enjoy riding at the time, but it wasn't something that I felt like I had as much confidence as the others to kind of really fully enjoy, you know. But I recently lost my Auntie Mel, and I actually have some really fond memories of my auntie when I was back riding as well, because she also used to ride. And I do remember this one particular day, I think she'd come to watch me ride, and I was so excited. And I remember it was my dad and my auntie. And then, sure enough, this particular lesson, I landed with Pepper. And I was just like, no, why do I have to have Pepper? And of course, we were jumping. And sure enough, I think as I'd gone to go over a jump, Pepper had sort of halted and was like, no, I'm not jumping over it. And then I just kind of went over Pepper's head. And I remember falling. And then it was like all my family stood at the side were like, yay, quick, jump up, get back on it, because I think they didn't want to draw attention to the fact or make it any worse by going, oh gosh, or anything like that. So they were trying to be encouraging, but they were sort of cheering me at the same time. It was just awful. I just remember being so winded, and but I did get back on the horse, and to be fair, it worked because I carried on the rest of the lesson. But yeah, jumping and me with horses is a no. But at the same time, Going on horse hacks, however, like long horse rides, that is really fun. I've always really enjoyed going on horse hacks. Also, when I got into high school, I think I finished horse riding when I was maybe around 10 or 11. It was short lived, I didn't really do it for a great deal of time, maybe a couple of years. But when I got into high school, I had a friend called Hannah, and she actually owned a horse, and she used to go down to the stables after school and she would do bits and bobs at the stables. So we got really good friends, and I ended up going down to these stables one day after school to help her out, and I got to meet a horse and everything, and it was really exciting. It'd been a long time actually since I'd been on the stables, or like been around, horses in general. I hadn't ridden one in the longest time. And so we went down to this field. She said, oh, he's down in the field and we need to bring him up to the stables. So we were probably about 13 at the time, something like that. So we went down to this field, and she called him over, and it was this gorgeous horse. I forget his name now, but he was absolutely gorgeous. And she said, and he just seemed to have the most beautiful temperament. And she said, do you want to ride him back? And I was like, well, I can't ride him back because he's got no saddle on. And she was like, no, it'll be fine. I'll lead him. If you want to jump on his back, I'll, lead him back up. So I was like, well, yeah, sure. I was actually really excited. So I managed to I think I sort of climbed on the fence, and I managed to get on this horse's back. And but out of absolutely nowhere, he just bolted. And I've never ridden horseback like completely bare either. So I was like hanging onto this horse for dear life. This horse shot straight up, all the way through the field. It went all the way up the track. It was absolutely galloping. I was holding on for dear life. And this horse ran straight to his stables. I had to duck. If I hadn't have ducked, I'd have been whacked straight off the back of it. I would have probably been decapitated, to be fair. And it just ran straight to its stable. It was like it was that excited to get back to its bed. Oh my God, everybody in the stables came flying over. They were like, oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? My heart was going like the clappers. I was just glad I survived it, to be honest. My friend was mortified. She was like, I'm so sorry. He's not normally like that. I was like, yeah, well, safe to say I won't be doing that again in a rush. But yeah, that was quite a funny experience. But they really are the most beautiful and majestic animals. I know that when I was working at the stables, or riding at the stables as well, I used to spend after the lesson a little bit of time just looking around at all the different horses, because I was so little at the time. I could only ride certain ponies that were right for my height. And but my auntie and my cousin used to ride the bigger horses, and there was two huge Shire horses. One was called Lady, and the other one was, I forget what his name is now, but he was like this black and white mottled style Shire horse. He was absolutely stunning. But they two had like their own personalities, and I always used to remember Lady being really, really stubborn. She was absolutely gorgeous. But I remember my Auntie Mel, it was like some days Lady was brilliant. She was a dream to ride, and other days she was just like, nah, I'm not feeling it today. And all I could hear was like my Auntie Mel like, come on, Lady. And she'd be like rubbing her neck. She'd be like, come on, girl. Just saying all this stuff to just try and get Lady to move and be compliant. It was quite funny. But I'm definitely glad I had them experiences growing up. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it for the most part. Never really understood the activities that I had to do during my lessons. They used to make me do these, like, I don't know if there's any horse riders, but they used to make you do exercises on the back of the saddle. Like, one of them was called scissors, and you had to do a certain maneuver on the back of the horse. I actually have no idea what part of horse riding that really had, but I just, like, what was the point? I don't get it. I don't know if it was just to help desensitize the horse to you, or to build your confidence on the back of the saddle, or what it was really. But I just remember those being a massive part of my horse riding lessons as opposed to just riding. It was bizarre. But yeah, looking back, I really, really loved it. And I especially loved it as I got a little bit older. I would take some of the younger children out on a horse riding hike. We didn't do it very often, but we would take them out down the country lanes, and that was always really fun. And it just felt like a nice bit of responsibility as well as I kind of like progressed through my lessons. So just coming back to the build, predominantly that's what I wanted for this build, was to make sure that it was fully functioning to be able to own a horse quite comfortably and do everything that you wanted to do with your horse in The Sims. I think this lot's really beautiful as well because it is just set outside in the countryside, so taking your horse out and being able to go for like a little walk and or a trot or whatever it is you want to do, it was just like the perfect location for it. But once I'd put everything in place to own a horse, I wanted it to also have like a farm style feel to it as well. So at the front of the property, I decided to section it off into kind of like little fields and little pens as well. So we've got like an animal shed on the left hand side, and that has a beautiful little lake. And I did actually end up purchasing a cow for that particular section, and that was really cute as well. You can see that just about in the first clip of the video. But this is where I'm doing a little chicken coop as well. This is just, oh, when I saw these I thought they were so cute. So I obviously had to have a little section for that, but I wanted it to kind of feel a little bit like a farm. And I also wanted a place where the Sims could, work on plants and do lots of planting as well. So it was like a real multifunctional lot. So with every single build that I build, I always like to include lots of like skill building items and activities and things like that you can do on the outside. Obviously, predominantly, I focused on the farming element, the animals, and as well as obviously having places where you can plant things. But with the back of the house, I wanted it to have almost like a personal backyard to the house as well. So it has like a little section where you can sit down, and then there's some swings in the back for the children, and there's just lots and lots going on in this build. And there's also a lot of spare space as well, so if there was something that you did want to add into the build, like an outdoor activity, there's still loads of space to add in whatever you like. So there's recently been a new game released called Inzoi, which is a Korean game which is very similar to The Sims. It's kind of like a simulation style game. It has much more realistic probably looking graphics, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to try it and I'm going to see what the hype is, because actually a friend, it was back last year, had seen some I think it was some footage that they released at the time. It was probably when it was in beta, and he actually sent me a video and he was like, I've seen a game that I think you're gonna love. So I've been following this game for a little while, not too closely, but I had it in my wish list on Steam, and obviously it's been released, and I'm now seeing on TikTok lots and lots of talk about it. There's so many people talking about, sort of the relation to The Sims 4 and comparing it and things like that. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to see what this game's like. So I bought it yesterday and I installed it and had a little play around in the build mode. I am quite familiar with Korean style games, their art style, graphic style, etc. So it was quite familiar really in that sense. I don't like to really pass too much comment. I don't think really anybody should right now whilst it's in early access. I think far too many people, especially through Steam and early access games, will pass an opinion and really write a game off before they've really given it a chance. No Man's Sky was a massive example of that. It didn't have a good launch. It was, it needed a lot of work doing to it, but over the years the developers really put in a lot of time and effort, and it's a fantastic game now with lots and lots of content in it. So you know, I'm going to do a build in the game, but I'm also going to bear in mind that it's brand new. You know, they've got lots and lots of bugs going on at the minute that they're ironing out and they're working on, and I'm going to give it a fair go. I actually thought it was a bit of a shame to see some shade thrown over at The Sims 4, because Sims 4 is a fantastic game that's been established for many, many years. I can understand the frustration from the expense point of view, you know, especially if you're coming into The Sims later on. You know, if you've not been a part of The Sims 4 since the beginning, it's very, very difficult to catch up, and I understand and can respect that. But I think it's important to appreciate them as two different games that you can still play at the same time. You know, they've got different art styles. I know that they're saying that Inzoi is a bit like a GTA for women type of a game. You know, it's much more realistic graphics and things like that. But I actually love the Sims 4 graphics. I think it's very fun, it's very light and enjoyable and very beautiful and bright. But at the same time, I'm going to give it a go and see how it is, and you know, see if I enjoy it. But it would never take away from The Sims 4, not in a million years. I absolutely adore this game and I always will. But it'd be nice to see if there's something just as enjoyable, you know, that's now out there that's quite similar to The Sims. But obviously it's like learning a brand new game all over again, so I was trying to figure out how to do the controls and things like that, and it's yeah, I managed to build a house actually. I was quite proud of that, but it was quite finicky really to do the walls and stuff, so I need a bit longer to sort of play around and really understand the controls in that game and to try and come up with something good. But I'm going to give it a go and see what I can come up with. So just coming back to the build, I'm finally moving on to the interior, and this is the kitchen. I actually really loved this room in the end. I thought it really came together, but it took a little bit of working around, because it wasn't that the shape of the kitchen was hard or anything like that, but initially I wasn't sure how I wanted it to be. So I played around with this one, chopping and changing stuff for ages, but the final look of it I actually really liked. So I wanted the interior to be kind of like in with a farmhouse-ish style vibe, but at the same time it was a huge family home, and I wanted it to not be too kind of old-fashioned, you know, maybe even like a modern style farmhouse. So I'm just a slight bit obsessed with this particular floor tile, as well as the wall tile that's quite similar. I don't know which pack it's from, but I just love it. I think it looks so beautiful. Here I was trying to create a divide between the main kitchen area and sort of like a slight dining room, just slightly off. And I like to kind of separate it. There's a little white divider, but for some reason it interferes with the outside, I forget what they're called, like this sort of trim that goes around the outside of the house, and it causes issues with it. So in the end I think I had to remove it, so that's a little bit of a shame. I'm not sure why it kind of, I think it's a bug why it does that. It's something to do with it separating off into a different room, but yeah, it's just, I ended up having to take it out. But yeah, I created this little dining room. This wasn't actually meant to be the main dining room, this little bit here. It was supposed to be more like a bit of a breakfast area, but in the end, when I had a look at the room that I was going to make into a dining room, it was huge, and I thought, you know what, I think this is substantial enough really, so I kind of just kept this as the main dining area. So with regards to like the colour tones that I use within a build, I really, really love this kind of green and dark brown. This is the type of colours or the palette that I absolutely would have in my own home. I think with each build that I do, I like to keep the tones of the build in relation to what I'm building. So if it's like a cozy home, I will use lots of warm tones. If it's a modern house, I like to use lots of cool tones and things like that. But with this particular home, sometimes when I do a build, I have a colour that I just can't let go of, and it just ends up feeding into my build. And as I kind of like went through, so I started off with like greens and browns, but as I went through the build, I just became a bit obsessed with blue. So so we end up having lots of blue tones throughout this build as well. Lots of the bathrooms were done in it. The next living room was done in it as well. But yeah, I don't know. I just get kind of like a colour in my mind, and then I'm like, everything has to be that colour. But at the same time, I wanted it to kind of feel like a modern country family home. I knew this house was going to have loads and loads of children in it as well, so I wanted to kind of keep it quite nice and vibrant in places as well. There's also a sunroom off the back of the build, or the side of the build, and I was quite tempted into making that into like a little plant sunroom, which I think would have been really nice. But at the same time, I wanted to have like a bit of a section for the kids, which I always love doing in my big family homes, is just having a room where it's full of activities and skill building items for children. So I decided to make it into a room like that for the kids instead. But I really went all out with the kind of ceiling hanging plants in this build. Oh, there are so many beautiful new plants, and I really enjoyed playing around with them. I did in my last build, actually, when I did that huge like flower shop. I really got to have a look at all the different plants and whatnot in that build, but I've since got the rest of the packs now, so there's even more to play around with in this one. And so just for anybody who is interested in this build, if you want to know what packs we used, best thing to do is just to have a look on the gallery. I had no idea which packs I used, to be honest. It was a bit of everything. I'm not doing a restrictive pack build with this one, so it is a bit of anything and everything. Similarly, if you do want to download any of my builds, always make sure you've got testing sheets on bb.moveobjects, because I always build with move objects. It's just so much more freedom really to place items and be more creative, to layer objects as well. It's just, yeah, I love it. It's my favourite cheat in the game. So in the downstairs of this build, I ended up building a kitchen, a dining area, as well as 2 living areas, a kids room, and an office, and it also has a downstairs bathroom. I didn't include all the bathrooms in this build, like the decoration of them all. I always end up keeping the style of the bathrooms the same throughout one build as well, so you're not really missing out. I try to use the same style of sinks and toilets and wallpapers and things like that, but there is actually 4 bathrooms in this build, and later on I do film one of them as well. I didn't film the entranceway to this build either, because it was just like, I don't know, it just felt like very generic and a bit boring. But I did include the landing area upstairs because that was quite a big space, so I thought I will include that and show you everything that I put in those areas. I don't know what it is with fireplaces either. I feel like I always have to kind of spice them up and add something in a little bit different. I can't just have a fireplace on its own. It has to have some sort of like mirror or something like that behind it. But yeah, I quite like it in the end. I felt like I was chopping and changing around, and there was just something about this room that I just couldn't get right. So yeah, editing it is a nightmare because I'll have it one way and then I'll go back and delete something and change it for something else, and then in the end it looks nothing like how it did when I started out. But you know, I suppose that's part of being creative, I guess. But this is the little sunroom that I ended up making into like a kids play area. I do think this would have just been like the perfect spot for like an indoor planting area, but what you choose to do with this build is entirely up to you. I mean, you can download it unfurnished and furnish it yourself quite happily, but because I knew that it was going to be a big family home, I did want to make sure that there was just plenty of stuff in it for kids to do as well. So that's why I decided to just designate this little area to the kids. I want to say a big thank you to everyone that's also following me over on TikTok. I'm trying to follow as many people back as well, who are into Sims related content. I know sometimes you get some funny accounts over on TikTok and you never really know who you're following, so I am trying to kind of sift through a little bit and just make sure I'm following all the legitimate accounts. But thank you so much if you're following me over there. I'm a little bit TikTok obsessed. I just love it. I actually have 2 accounts. I've got my personal account and my Sims account, but at the minute I'm trying to predominantly stay on my Sims account and kind of make that a bit more like my personal one as well. So honestly, the content's brilliant over there. I've seen a challenge actually that I think it's called the 1 tile challenge, and you start off in just like 1 tile, and then you have to create, you obviously build that up and you create a big house from it and this, that, and the other. But I've been watching a few of them and they're actually really good. So I might do one of them myself just because it looks like a fun challenge to do. I'm also thinking about using TikTok as a platform more in general as well. At the minute, I'm just kind of posting previews of my builds, but I think I might post a little bit more content over there, sort of showcasing the builds that I make. And yeah, like I was saying, I might do some fun challenges over there as well, because it's kind of short, quick content, but lots of people using TikTok. Not everyone's got the time to sit and watch a full YouTube video, so I might be utilizing TikTok as a platform a little bit more as well. So I'm just working on the upstairs of the build now, and I had 5 bedrooms to do. I didn't build for a particular family, but I always like in these big family homes to sort of personalise the rooms. So this was like a teen girls room, and I really love playing around with all the new items, because 5 years ago we never had bunk beds or that kind of style of bed with the desks underneath. They just weren't in the game back then. So it's really fun to play around with all the different ones because there's just so much choice now. I actually love this little like Alexa style speaker as well that I discovered in the game. In my house, I mean, I have to pretty much whisper when I say this because otherwise it'll start going off, but I have these devices in all of my kids' bedrooms, in the living room and downstairs in the kitchen. Now I know some people are a little bit suspicious about them and whatnot, but they're really, really handy in my house because I live in a 3-story house, so communicating is so much easier to just make announcements through that so that everyone in the house can hear what we're announcing. it's it's quite funny really, but I actually use them to wake the kids up and stuff like that in the morning as well. It just saves shouting. I don't have to shout anymore. I mean, sometimes I do because sometimes the Alexas don't even work with a teenager, but they are just so handy. But when I saw it I was like, oh, that's so cute, that's got to be put in there. So because I knew this was going to be a huge family home, I wanted to make sure that there was bedrooms for each stage of your child's life. So from being a baby to being a toddler and then through to a child and a teen, I wanted to make sure that there was bedrooms for all of them. So that if your Sims moved in and they wanted to have a big family, they were just completely set up for every eventuality. But I do really love doing bedrooms, especially the kids' bedrooms as well in The Sims 4, because there's just so much choice now. And I like playing around with the different colours as well and coming up with different themes. But my favourite bedrooms within this build are the pink and yellow one. I did really like that. That was quite a fun one to do. But I later on do like a teen boys bedroom and I really enjoyed that one as well. I kind of played around with that one for a while because I wasn't really happy with it and I was chopping and changing stuff. So editing it was a bit of a nightmare again. But I really loved the way that looked in the end. So actually, speaking about those beds that we now have in the game, when I was younger, I used to have one, and it was like a bed that had a desk and a wardrobe underneath it. I don't even know if I told this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. And this one particular day, I really, really wanted a hamster. I was really dying to have one. And I said to my dad, please, please can I have a hamster? And he was like, no, not having one. Absolutely no. And I was really heartbroken. So this one particular day, with my pocket money, I ended up going and buying one anyway. It wasn't a hamster, it was a gerbil. It was a black gerbil. And I bought his cage, his bedding, his food, absolutely everything. And I decided to hide him underneath this bed. So this was really naughty. Please don't do this out there if you're listening either. So I had this little gerbil underneath my bed and I called him Fred. And I was doing really well at hiding him. I had him under there for around about a week, but one day I must have left the lamp on underneath the bed and I went to school. And my dad came into my bedroom with some washing and he found him and he was absolutely fuming. So he bundled me and Fred into the car and he drove to my mum's house. And my mum actually used to keep hamsters. And he tried to he was looking to drop it off at her house. So we knocked on her door and she actually wasn't in. And he said to me, right, I'm going to let you keep it on one condition. And he said, and it's that you clean it, you buy its food, you buy its bedding, you take care of it. And that's the only condition. So sure enough, I did. And I took really, really good care of him to the point where he actually grew old and grew grey hair. I think he lived to be about 3, which was quite long for a gerbil, I think. And I absolutely loved him. He was the most brilliant little gerbil ever. And I had lots of good memories with him. But I did take care of him in the end, so it sort of worked out. But I don't recommend anyone do that. But it was just something I did when I was younger, and I was just a little bit cheeky. Actually, in the end, when Fred passed away, my dad said to me, you can have a hamster, and he quite happily took me to the pet shop to try and get one. And I came home with this gorgeous little hamster, but sadly, overnight, it passed away. So my dad was like, gosh, like, I'm so sorry about that. I think he felt awful because, And so he took me back to the pet shop and we bought another hamster, and that one too passed away overnight. So I don't know whether it was just like that particular batch of hamsters just was, not the best or what, but in the end my dad was like, we better leave it because it seems like you've got some sort of hamster reaper in your room. We can't keep going through this, because I think I went through something like 2 or 3 hamsters, and in the end my dad was like, yeah, let's not do this anymore. So I ended up, that was the end of that, and I gave up. So I'm just finishing off at the minute one of the last child's bedrooms, and this one actually has 4 beds in it. So like I was saying earlier, even though it's a 5-bed 4-bath build, it's actually just got tons of beds in it. So you could do all sorts in this build. The bedrooms really are that big as well, so you can put whatever you want in them if you wanted to change them up and come up with your own uses for them. The last bedroom, which is this one, I started out and realised it was just absolutely humongous, so I decided to separate it off and create an ensuite, which you can see there. I didn't film it, I just decided to do it, and then that kind of made the bedroom a bit more of a manageable size as well. It made more sense to the build. So I'm actually quite thankful I'm near the end of this voiceover, because my hay fever is kicking right in. I've even had a tablet this morning, but no, my nose is running and it's just going to be a day of hell apparently. We spend all winter looking forward to a bit of sunshine, and I love it. I love it when it's really nice outside. You can go out and enjoy yourself, but then I'm so quickly reminded that I've got a hay fever and the misery that brings. So, it's not good, is it? In fact, it's literally just popped up on my computer that it's a high pollen count for today, so I think I'm in for a whole world of misery. But anyway, I'm just finishing up on this room. I used some of the light oak furniture. I really loved that wardrobe in particular. I thought it was really beautiful, like a big carved one. I'm not sure what set that's from, but yeah, I really like that one. But thank you so much, guys, for watching if you've got this far. This will be available to download on the Sims 4 gallery under hashtag SimKimBuilds. You'll find all of my builds on there. Just make sure that the testing cheats true cheat is activated, as well as the bb.moveobjects, just to make sure that everything downloads as it should in place. Thank you again so much for all your support across all of my platforms, especially TikTok, with that being my latest new one. And also, if you're looking to further support my channel, like I say, my creator code SimKim is now live. If you're looking to purchase any more Sims 4 expansion packs, that's a great direct way to support me and my family. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you take care wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
The dark, 'cause once you let the light in, you won't see the beautiful stars shining down from afar. No, I ain't afraid of the dark. I don't mind the rain, bringing life back. We can breathe again when dealing with the pain. need to go. Getting old don't bother me, 'cause with eyes that spin through life, it's so much easier to see who I am